maybe marriage isn't popular anymore because marriage is not foundationally a freeing institution. Marriage is intended to constrain. And when it constrains us, it says we're choosing this one person to be with, and we will no longer be looking at the spectrum of endless choices, or we will no longer be swiping on our phones through a sea of endless faces on online dating apps or what have you. Marriage constrains. And that's part of the good of it, is saying you will make this choice and live out your life with one person only for the benefit of yourselves, each other, and any prospective children.
But I think when we define success for a woman, especially that you compare it with traditional roles like having children, being married, and having a stable life, I compare it with this idea, the idea of the tangibility of success. Success now is Hollywood defined. A woman who has her teeth bright and shining, who has her skin glowing on the camera, who has following on social media, who has a lot of money worth a few millions, who does not necessarily have a stable life, but has all these shiny and bright things. Compare it to, say, my neighbor who walks her dog in the afternoon with her 2 kids and say works part-time or works full-time and they maintain a home. She's just so regular in modern day culture. But I think I capture it with a sense of we have a problem with the tangibility of success for a woman. How much do you agree with that?
Tangibility, you mean like how much you can actually reach success? Or what do you...
Even how would define success for a woman?
Okay, so you said quite a bit there, but I have a couple of reflections to offer back. I think we have had this overemphasis on individuality and on achievement, whether you're a man or a woman, finding your own way. And I've just likened it to kind of swimming alone in a big ocean, and you're just by yourself and you're just clinging to a little life raft in like a sea of endless choices. And that is the world we're kind of living in. And we would contrast that with a different type of world and a different view of the good life that includes, it is the good life because you are buttressed in by certain aspects of, for example, marriage. Like maybe marriage isn't popular anymore because marriage is not foundationally a freeing institution. Marriage is intended to constrain. And when it constrains us, it says we're choosing this one person to be with, and we will no longer be looking at the spectrum of endless choices, or we will no longer be swiping on our phones through a sea of endless faces on online dating apps or what have you. Marriage constrains. And that's part of the good of it, is saying you will make this choice and live out your life with one person only for the benefit of yourselves, each other, and any prospective children. So the freedom individuality thing was important for a season. And I'm sure that there's a time in our recent history when we needed to have more individuality. We needed to have more freedoms, and women in particular needed to have more freedoms. But I don't think that's the era that any young person is living out today. So we've come to the end in a way of how useful those endless choices can be. And instead, we want to be able to grab hold of a balancing force that we can be grounded. We have a life raft, not just bobbing around in the ocean by ourselves. Marriage that is long lasting, that is grounded, it is grounding, and that's part of the benefit of it. But it's not freeing, and that might be why on the face of it, it's not as popular as it should be.
I think when you compare even personal experiences or anecdotal experiences, which could make a young person get scared of the lifelong commitment that comes alongside marriage, I think the benefits in marriage, at least personally, outweighs all of those, in quote, detriment or fear, or the feeling of even feeling trapped, if you could say trapped in quote. I think there's a lot of benefits to being married. There's stability for sure. Your life just becomes more stable. You talked about it even for men in the book. You said there's a few institutions that teach men, that shape men, like marriage. You talked about the military, sports, and other like religious institutions as well that shape men. Also the same way marriage shapes a man. It just helps you in certain way. Let me even talk about this. I've actually never talked about this on the podcast before. Like I mentioned earlier, I have a 6-month-old. I've known love a certain way before compared to now. Before, if I'm going to love someone, I have to have known you, met you, talked to you. It was very different compared to being a father. Like I imagine even before my son was born, I remember I was just premeditating what it would look like. And I premeditated it so far to the extent that I realized I'm actually deeply in love with this human being, not having met him yet. I mean, not a lot of things pushed me to tears, but when I saw the kid for the first time, I thought like, wow, I thought you were gonna be cute, but you're a lot more handsome than I could imagine. And I've never felt that before, that I love someone without ever seeing that person. And I thought, oh, it couldn't get better, but more and more, I just realized, oh, I can't love anyone better than this. My wife sometimes gets jealous when I see some things we see. I hope you feel the same thing about me. I'll say, my friend, I do. It's just different. But I think those are the perks that bring stability to one's life as a married person. And you can't, personally, I would not trade the world for it. I wouldn't trade the sense of swiping left or right on a stupid dating app for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any response to that.
Well, it's a beautiful thing, and it's worth having you describe that. It's often very difficult to give word to the very positive attributes of family life, as you have just done. It's difficult to do that. It's easier to write a divorce memoir, a kind of tell-all of the difficulties. And I'm not sure why that is, why it's hard to encapsulate and present the joys of, say, a family, a child, and why it's easier to talk about the difficulties. I don't know why that is. I do think it's worth talking about. I think we are in a moment now where we're hearing more and more people talk about that. We're hearing more and more people give up the swiping and the sexual freedom and say that it's meaningful to them. And I don't mean like Christian conservatives or religious conservative people. I mean like people who have lived out there in the world and now they've stopped and said, I'm wanting to live differently. So like Louis C.K. talking on a podcast recently comes to mind, or just people like the Rest is History podcast guy. He recently became a Christian, I think. And that's tangential to discussion of marriage, but it's kind of like some of these old things that were once beautiful are becoming known again. So I can only hope that this will be the way forward for marriage. And incidentally, on marriage and men and children in particular, it's largely marriage that attaches men to their families. So while you do not have to be married to have a child, and you do not have to be married to love that child very deeply, marriage is often, it's the force that brings the father into the family over the long haul. And so, yeah, I just think that's another beautiful aspect of marriage. That's beneficial to the man, 100%, but it's also beneficial to the woman who has the child, because having a child puts you in a vulnerable position for a season. You need the person who loves that child as much as you do, or almost as much as you do, to be the force that helps and cares and spells off in the night and protects the woman when she's at her weakest. Like childbearing is not an easy thing. So yeah, I think that marriage is a beautiful thing for men, and obviously having a child is as well, and communicating that is something that is happening and should continue to happen.
Right. Just before we transition to another topic there, I think with the other benefit that is often not talked about, which I say to a lot of my co-workers, is actually you can literally become rich by getting married. I mean, it sounds overstated when I say that, because yes, there is a lot of expenses with running a home. I face that as well. You're going to have to pay a mortgage, and life is not getting any more less expensive in a country like ours now. But if two people can actually pull their forces together, they stand a better chance at achieving a better economic outcome than if a single person was doing it. So one of the things I tell people in tandem with having a great experience being a father is don't do it alone. And I think it's the same thing I tell people when it comes to their economic situation. Don't do it alone. Do it alongside someone else. And that's where I find it utterly foolish, honestly, when people talk about things like, should we do 50-50 or should it be like 100-0? My question is, what are you talking about?